Hey, thanks very much. This program is presented by Chuck Malamut, a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. The information, views, and opinions expressed on this broadcast are those of Chuck, do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as of the date of this broadcast, subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. This presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, member, SIPC. Having said that, Chuck Malamut is here. He is the managing director of his group, the Malamut Group, at Morgan Stanley's Northfield office. And to reach Chuck and his team for all of your financial planning needs, dial 609-383-2010, 609-383-2010, 609-383-2010. 6 minutes past the hour. Chuck, happy Tuesday to you, my good man.
Good morning, Harry.
Good morning to you.
Quite a show this morning.
It has been a great first half. Now I know the third quarter is in the bag because Mr. Big is here. Opening comment is yours.
Mr. Big in what sort of way, Harry?
Well, no, in the best way.
Oh, okay.
Not your waistline.
Thank you very much.
No, you're looking good.
I appreciate that. So, Harry, it's pretty interesting because I was chatting with a client at the end of last week, and the question was, well, how has the S&P performed? Trailing 12, because we always look at year to date, quarter to date, month to date, but oftentimes we don't go back and say, okay, what has happened, and we've been through a tremendous amount of anxiety, as you know. Market has been full of fits and starts, and at the end of the day, we've gone absolutely nowhere. I think when I looked,
but if you look at all 12, it's a better story than if you only looked at one little snapshot.
Well, no, trailing 12. We've gone absolutely no place.
Right.
And again,
but what I'm saying is, though, that's why I believe you talk a lot about not getting hung up on any short period in time, because it could be a bad run, but then if you stretch it out over time, it always seems to work out. I guess the point I'm making is to not be micromanaging every second, because it'll drive you crazy.
Well, point's well taken. If you do micromanage every second, you would probably been in and out of the market at least a half a dozen times,
and usually at the wrong time.
Yeah. So, when we look forward, and obviously we're not going to talk politics, but the market has a number of concerns as we get towards the first Tuesday in November to make a decision who's going to be responsible, to take the helm of our country. But I think that has a lot to do with what's happening now. And oftentimes when you get in these periods of where the market just sort of hangs in there, we'll call it, oftentimes what we've seen previously is the market does have a tendency with a number of good news reports to sort of break out.
Let me jump in for a quick second, because for one of the first times in a long time on the Malamut program, the Fed is not on it's not a strict, but on our agenda, our outline, and the outline is very free-flowing. It's some sub-headlines: market update, the consumer and the economy, optimism and pessimism for the equity markets, market sentiment, and China. Those are today's sort of subtopics, but I want to bring the Fed in right now, because I was rather surprised to hear the Fed chair bring up negative interest rates.
Yeah, it wasn't taken.
That was not necessary.
Not taken very well, for sure. But I no, so Harry. So when I'm going to say maybe 90 days ago, we were of the mindset that we were going to see two potential increases.
Yeah,
and now with the June meeting in the crosshairs, it seems as if, unless something dramatic changes with the economic reports, that they're not going to make a move.
That's what I've always believed. I just don't believe, when you look at our GDP and you look at the insanity of these past 8 years, I don't see the environment to do it. And boy, did she throw cold water all over rate increases by saying she would not rule out negative interest rates. And that was something I brought up to you on your show a long time ago. Could we actually go? Because you had outlined in the past on your program several instances where countries did do negative interest rates. I didn't like the sound of it, Chuck. I thought it was totally unnecessary.
Harry, I don't think we're in a position right now certainly for negative interest rates, and I think that.
But she didn't rule it out.
I think you think about the ramifications of what it ultimately creates. It can't be good for short-term fixed income investors, obviously, and it's not going to be good, I don't think, in the equity market. So, not that I'm throwing cold water on the statement, but I don't think it's going to happen unless something dramatic negatively happens.
Why do you think she brought it up?
Well, Harry, I think what happens is she's just trying to cover all bases.
Then why not just make it seem like maybe a rate increase might not be in the offering, or maybe not 2, maybe 1, leave open maybe none, but to go all in and say maybe negative interest rates? I just thought that she crapped all over her own economy with that.
Certainly, I don't think her comments were taken very well. That's for sure. When we talk about the equity markets, last week, for instance, Harry, there was a fair amount of anxiety, particularly around the retail sector. Starting with, I believe, Macy's rolled into Kohl's, and then we ended up with Nordstrom and J.C. Penney. And literally for, I think it was over 3 days, Harry, every one of those companies, reported earnings that were not nearly in line with the analysts' expectations. So that sort of sent, shockwaves, through the marketplace, and as a result, we were down, last week 0.5%. Now the good news is we had a big day yesterday. Mm-hmm. So what is happening is that the market, it seems like every week is sort of teetering on slightly positive versus slightly negative, and what happens is it creates a tremendous amount of investor anxiety, and ultimately the question is, well, where do I go? What do I do? In a very, very low interest rate environment, how am I going to create an income stream to maintain my retirement? And I wasn't chuckling on the way in. I was, I had that dead serious outlook as you're going through what has transpired or not transpired over, close to the last 8 years. And we as a nation, we need to change some things. There's no doubt about it. We cannot continue, with the free market enterprise system that we have, that has been in place for hundreds of years. We have to get back to normal.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Makes perfect sense. By the way, we have a number of phone calls that are holding. There are no phone calls this hour, and I want to apologize for that, but I don't want to leave you on hold either because that's not fair. So we've taken phone calls for the whole first half of the program, no phone calls this hour. So, the final 30 minutes of the program from 9:35 until 10:06, we will be in open forum again. So anybody that's holding on now, we can chat then or the next time that you have the opportunity during open forum to check in, and they're not hanging up anyhow. So they want to get on with you so bad, Chuck. They're not hanging up even when you tell them we're not taking calls. And again, that's with apologies. It's not our decision. Let me ask you about the consumer and the economy, because a robust economy, when people feel like their paycheck is going to be there, that their job is solid, that they're getting fair increases, for working hard and being loyal, and then they will spend discretionary money and not put it aside in fear of not having money, tomorrow. That when you talk about we've got to change things, to me, if we get back into the business of being the United States of America, the big dog, and we build our military back up, we repair our relationships, and we do all these things and also encourage reinvestment. I'm telling you, Chuck, if me and you took it over, we could put in some incentives that would absolutely inspire companies to reinvest in both their human resource level and reinvest in their plants or whatever their business might be. If we get back into that business, I say look out, and it'll be boom time USA.
Harry, I feel as if we're sort of at the top of the stretch at the Kentucky Derby, and you have the odds-on favorite that's got the best pedigree in the world, just ready to turn loose, and you're sitting on top of the horse with the reins pulled in, saying no, don't go, because I'm not ready to cut you loose right now.
And then at the end, Cash hits the finish line first, and America is saved, and a great jockey riding that horse. So the consumer and the economy for right now, Chuck, I don't think, you know me and I know you for most of our lifetime. We're brothers. We're optimistic people, but there's a lot of pessimism right now. And I have to say, as an eternal optimist, I'm very understanding as to why there's a lot of pessimism. People don't like the way that things are going right now. So when you don't have, that esprit de corps, when you don't have that atmosphere that things feel secure, then people will make different decisions than they otherwise would. And it's human nature. It's how things work. If you know your job is going to be there, and if you know that you're going to be okay, then you will do certain things. Maybe you'll take a vacation. Maybe you'll go out and dine at a local restaurant. These are all the things, Chuck, that are the difference between businesses staying open and businesses having to close.
Yeah, so, Harry, if we take a look, we started the discussion about what was happening in the retail sector. In addition to having, disappointing first quarter results, again, there was the cancellation of the Staples Office Depot merger.
For no reason.
Caused a fair amount of sentiment to sour on investors. So think about, why was the merger canceled?
Because of this administration. Let me just throw this out to everyone. With the information superhighway, the World Wide Web, and your ability, if you choose, what's that famous guy with the mustache, and the Yankees have a big sign at Yankee Stadium. A lot of sports stadiums have it. Famous supply place. I can't think of it. W something? WB Mason.
Correct.
Okay, so you have WB Mason. You have Staples. You have the other company. Then you have these variety of internet opportunities. Chuck, how is there undue concentration if these two companies were to merge?
And
it's ridiculous.
Two struggling companies at best.
We've seen this administration actually prevent two struggling companies that could become one, stronger company that could be saved, actually both go out of business because of the way that we're doing things.
Yeah,
right
so
now.
You scratch your head and you say, okay, so the deal gets put on the shelf, impacts the equities, stakeholders of those companies, and it also impacts the bondholders. And there's a lot to it, sort of behind the scenes, that is not discussed. But this is not the first time, Harry, that we've had these potential mergers.
It's terrible. This is not Rockefeller and Standard Oil. We're not talking about economic concentration that even the government, that should have been just a pro forma, routine, just rubber stamp approval that is a healthy merge, and all the reasons that you said, Chuck, and others that we could get into that we didn't even mention. But yet, because this is an anti-business administration, they look at this as evil and wrong and bad, and so they stop something good from happening that would have helped two companies.
Yeah. So you go back. Let's go back to retailing for a second. As I mentioned, Harry, the first quarter earnings impacted. They were obviously very disappointing for the large retailers, and that causes concerns. And the thought process is, okay, where's the strength with respect to consumer spending? Now, on the flip side, while all this was happening, at the end of the week, there was some good news that came showing some positives for the consumer. Retail sales that were released for April showed a 1.3% increase, which was significantly higher than the consensus expectations of 0.8%. So,
Chuck, see if what I'm about to say is more true than it is untrue. Right now, most spending by the American people is need buying, not want buying.
A lot of need-based for sure, but I think what is happening, Harry, because the other report that came out, which was positive, for the consumer, the index of consumer sentiment, which the University of Michigan, publishes every month, rose to 95.8 in May. I'm sorry, 95.8 currently versus 89 in April, which is the highest level that we've seen in 11 months. So you have a fair, you have economic reports that don't necessarily agree. Now, think about this for a second. Quarterly earnings, you're looking in the rearview mirror. What have you done over the last 3 months? The consumer spending stats that came out is sort of a go-forward number, saying, well, maybe as we get in through the second quarter, and this is what all the analysts and those that follow and make predictions with respect to the market, or the markets are saying that, hey, we think that we've put the worst behind us with respect to the trough in earnings, and as we get through Q2, 3, and 4, that at the end of the day, GDP is going to be pushing 2.5% to 3%.
Yeah, sure. Except I'm not buying any of that, because we have an administration that puts its boot on the throat of industry, and none of this is going to happen. There will not be 2.5%, 3% growth. We just got revised downward to 0.5. We're at fractional growth right now. Hate to say it, we're closer to a recession, which I don't think we're going to have, but we're closer to that than we are to robust growth, because this leopard is not going to change its spots in the final 248 days. That's just the way that it is. We're way late for the first break. We'll catch up right now. Back in 3 minutes with Chuck Malamut. Again, I want to apologize to callers who were holding on just then for quite a while. No phone calls during Chuck's program. Justine Santinello is going to join us, our fashion, lifestyle, beauty expert, to the Early in the Morning program in the final 10 minutes of today's 8 o'clock hour. She's a fabulous go-to media and resource for everything from style to beauty to gifting to entertaining and beyond. Regularly, Justine is seen as a featured brand ambassador on QVC, and she'll be joining us in just a little bit, but much more to go. 2 more power segments with Chuck Malamut straight ahead.
New Jersey's elected leaders and the good casinos have a plan for Atlantic City, a plan for hard work. The kind of hard work local 54's casino workers do. But whenever there's a disaster, there's always someone trying to take advantage. The Wall Street billionaire who controls the Tropicana and the Taj Mahal is a wolf. Plenty of money, but always hungry for the next kill. The Taj has put their workers on welfare for health care. We expect the Tropicana will be next. Put us on welfare so the taxpayers take care of us. We're the middle class in Atlantic City. Welfare for health care is a sham. Thank God New Jersey's elected leaders have condemned the Tropicana Taj Mahal welfare plan. So where do you stand? With the real plan or the welfare plan? Stop the Trop and the Taj by not going there. Because on Wall Street, money talks, and they'll listen to that.
Paid for by Unite Here International Union.
We treat people well. Shore Physicians Group.
Shore Physicians Group is proud to include rheumatology among its medical specialties, allowing you to seek diagnosis and treatment for arthritis and other disease that can affect your joints, muscles, and bones. Shore Physicians Group rheumatologists Dr. Linda Brecker and Anna Serlusu are board certified in internal medicine and rheumatology. Together, these expert practitioners bring fellowship training and a highly personalized approach to the people they care for. Shore Physicians Group is accepting new patients at its Summers Point and Marmore offices. Most insurance plans are accepted. For a rheumatology appointment, call 609-365-6200 or visit shorephysiciansgroup.com. That's 609-365-6200 or shorephysiciansgroup.com.
Shore Physicians Group, treating people well.
This is Harry Hurley, and I'm with the Mayor, Charles Kane, owner and operator of the Auto Plaza, Egg Harbor Township. Mayor, tell your listeners who are looking for a car, why should they choose the Auto Plaza?
Harry, it's our full-service department, selection, and hassle-free financing alternatives that have set us apart for over 17 years. Over the years, we've been the recipient of many sales and service awards, as well as receiving an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau. It's been a real honor for us. We are now serving a second generation of sales and service customers. Stop in today. You're going to love our staff and experience what makes us different.
For all of your automobile service, parts, and sales needs, call the Auto Plaza at 609-646-2447. That's 609-646-2447. And visit us on the World Wide Web at myautoplaza.com.
The Auto Plaza at English Creek. Roll with Mr. Tire.
Hi, it's Mark Levin. Join me at 6 this evening. Now back to the Mayor of the Morning, Harry Hurley, on WPG Talk Radio 104.1, South Jersey's talk station.
Mini segment because we ran so long in the first, what I consider to be just dynamic segment by Chuck Malamut. He is our official and exclusive financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program, for me, for the Hurley in the Morning charity. And Chuck and I, of course, we're brothers. We go back a lifetime. And you can reach Chuck. I trust him unconditionally. You will as well. 609-383-2010. Chuck is the managing director of his group, the Malamut Group, at Morgan Stanley's Northfield office. And we are talking about very relevant, important financial matters. Brief market update that Chuck was able to do. A little bit about the consumer and the economy. And I think maybe it's a good time to check into the optimism and pessimism of the equity markets.
So, Harry, as we started today's discussion with the market going absolutely nowhere over the last year or so, there's a number of reasons to be optimistic with respect to the market. Equity valuations at this point in time, Harry, do not appear to be stretched. So that's one of the reasons. Another reason, earnings, as we chatted about a few minutes ago, should start to materialize in the upcoming quarters. And if that does in fact happen, then that's obviously going to be positive for the equity markets. We've had a lot of discussions with respect to oil. I actually heard an analyst this morning predicting that they wouldn't be at all surprised in a year's time if oil pushed through 100. Now, if you remember, it wasn't, for a number of reasons, it wasn't too terribly long ago that we chatted about this, and some on the street were predicting $15 a barrel. That obviously did not happen. So, so the route within the oil industry seems to be over at this point in time, unfortunately, displacing way too many people that are now looking, to be hopefully gainfully employed in another industry. When we talked about investors and the sentiment, Harry, it just seems you have that eerie feeling that investors right now are overly bearish. There's just so much money that has left the equity markets. The retail investor that that we oftentimes refer to, has left. So now what we see a lot is institutional and hedge funds, and the retail person doesn't do much of anything right now. And then ultimately, as we kind of talked about, we kind of talked around it. What's going to be happening as we get to the end of the year. There's been a lot of discussion with respect to tax reform for corporations. And if that does in fact happen, Harry, I think the economy is just going to roar in the future. Now, so that's all that's what the analysts are saying, and we're thinking about what can in fact help the market. Conversely, on the flip side, as we got through the first quarter, earnings were, I guess, pretty shaky at best. And we do need to see some improvements, with respect to earnings, for equities to, push substantially higher. We talked briefly about the Fed. You mentioned negative interest rates. We kind of chatted maybe initially going from 2 now maybe to 1 rate hike or maybe 0 rate hikes this year. But what we have to think about, investors right now are very, very complacent with respect to the Fed and what the Fed could potentially do. So you need to sleep with both eyes open, so to speak, when it comes to the Fed. Global growth, domestically, while things are better here, it seems as if, particularly different parts of the world, pretty anemic, no growth, if any growth at all. As we mentioned before, as we ramp up into November, that overhang with respect to the uncertainty, with the direction of the company, and ultimately, the regulators looking at these merger and acquisitions. The scrutiny continues to increase.
Do you think, Chuck, for the time being, there will be less? Because for people who don't understand, there's a lot of expense, a lot of due diligence. There's a lot of work that goes into these things. And if you just already have a predisposed bias that no matter how good a case you make, no matter how well you produce, that you are not creating a monopoly or any type of, such intense concentration that would be such where the government would have a reasonable, reason to step in and want to not approve the deal. Do you think there will be less exploration of this and people will just wait for this administration to be gone? I wouldn't necessarily spend a lot of money right now. What was the name of the other company? It was Staples and who?
Staples and Office Depot. You had Pfizer and Allergan recently.
So everybody looks and says, wow, Staples and Office Depot, if they couldn't do it, well, what the heck am I doing? I'm not even going to – I think this is chilling the atmosphere right now.
Pfizer came to the market yesterday with an acquisition announcement. So – I think, Harry, you're going to continue to see M&A activity if the numbers are right. For the acquirer, obviously, and the acquiree needs to be obviously on board as well. Even
with so much doubt of knowing if regulatory approval will come?
I think what happens is the deals are probably looked at a little bit differently right now. To say, well, what if? Based on the current environment, you are still continuing to see M&A activity. But it's not. I mean, it seemed like every week we came in here, we talked about 2 or 3 transactions, and it seems as if it's now maybe you're looking at 2 or 3 a month. So
it seems like somebody got a hold of it and said, "We're going to stop this. We're not going to let this happen."
Point's very well taken, Harry, for sure.
Brief time out. We'll be right back. One more power segment straight ahead. Justine Santinelli is going to join us at 8:50, and we have a great program in store for you, our official lifestyle, fashion, and beauty expert for the Early in the Morning program. Justine is the founder and creative director of her own website, justhave.com. A great go-to media resource coming up after Chuck Malamut, and we'll be back with Chuck in just a few minutes. Stay with us. For more than 20 years, the D'Amato Law Firm has served as the official lead counsel to the Early in the Morning program. Led by certified civil trial attorney Paul D'Amato, the D'Amato Law Firm focuses their practice in representing those who have been seriously injured in construction, products liability, and motor vehicle collisions. The D'Amato Law Firm expertly handles cases throughout the country, but their primary focus is on representing victims injured right here at home in southern New Jersey. They've earned a reputation for excellence. From direct personal experience, I can readily confirm that the D'Amato Law Firm's overall competence, attention to detail, follow-up systems are outstanding, and they truly shine during your moment of truth before judge and jury. The D'Amato Law Firm is centrally located in Atlantic County at 2900 Fire Road, Suite 200. That's the second floor in Egg Harbor Township, New Jersey. That's the corner of Fire Road and the Black Horse Pike. For all of your personal injury legal needs, turn with confidence to the region's leader in the field of personal injury. They're the D'Amato Law Firm. Call 609-926-3300. That's 609-926-3300. And please tell the D'Amato Law Firm that Hurley in the Morning sent you.
Hi, this is Lenny from Kix McNutley's on 63rd Street in Sea Isle City. Sea Isle Beer Fest is back Saturday, June 4th at Kix McNutley's in Sea Isle City. Experience 3 hours of sampling America's best craft beers and live music. All the fun starts at 2 p.m. Whether you're a craft beer enthusiast or just looking to try something new, there is something for everyone.
For tickets and more information, visit WPGTalkRadio.com.
If you use a free credit monitoring service, you may think it will also protect your identity. But what you may not realize is that some free credit monitoring services feel free to sell your personal information. And that's a big price to pay. At LifeLock, we would never, ever sell your personal information. Instead, we help to protect you from identity theft by using proprietary technology to detect and alert you to a wide range of potential threats. And in the event that we discover a problem, we have a team of U.S.-based specialists who will work to resolve it. Of course, no one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses, but LifeLock helps to protect you without selling your information. Remember, free credit monitoring can cost you your personal information. LifeLock memberships start at just $9.99 a month plus applicable taxes. And now you can get 10% off a LifeLock membership. Go to LifeLock.com and enter promo code NEWS.
Hi, it's Mark Levin. Join me at 6 this evening. Now back to the Mayor of the Morning, Harry Hurley, on WPG Talk Radio 104.1, South Jersey's talk station.
Thank you very much. Great one. I am Hurley in the morning. He is Mark Levin. I am here with you in the morning. He is with you in the Hurley evening right after Sean. And the two of us this Friday at Hofstra University will be nearly arm in arm. I'm sure we're going to be in the same vicinity because he is winning the National Talkers Magazine Freedom of Speech Award, and on behalf of our entire team, that's all of our listeners, that's everyone that's ever contributed to the Hurley in the Morning charity. It's Chuck Malamut, who has been an incredibly generous contributor for all 9 years. I have the privilege for all of us to accept the Sharon L. Harrison, that's Michael Harrison's wife, who passed away a few years ago. It's really such an honor to receive the Harrison Award for the Humanitarian of the Year, and that's given to a radio talk show host who makes material contributions to their community. So on all of our behalf, I thank you for making it possible, because it's the only reason that I'm going to be there on Friday. So, Chuck, back to you.
So, Harry, as we started the hour, we talked about the ebbs and flows of the market and have gone absolutely nowhere. I mean, we've had that theme has basically dominated this year. And as you look at investor accounts, it's been very, very challenging, to have any sort of return. You think about what has happened. The market's pulled back over the last several weeks after rallying from the lows that we put in on February the 11th.
Actually, a fabulous rally.
February 11th through mid-February through mid-April was just wonderful for the equity markets. And imagine if you weren't participating, how disappointed you would be. So investor sentiment, as we kind of chatted about before we got to the break, has remained pretty weak. Investors at this point in time are probably more defensive than they have been for quite some time. A lot of cash sitting on the sidelines. So when you go back and kind of do a diagnostic on the rally, it looks as if maybe a lot of that was driven by short covering, and in a sense that that the recession that you kind of mentioned before, and in deflation risks were fading somewhat, rather than that growth optimism mindset. So we're kind of just muddling through right now, and you take that as you go overseas and you look at what is happening with respect to the negatives there. There's a lot of concern, Harry, with what we'll call risk assets. So is
it contagious from us?
Well, it's not so much contagious, but you have a lot of hurdles to cross through. If you remember, you have the referendum next month, where the UK is potentially going to leave the European Union.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's huge.
And
it looks like they're going to.
They're 35% probability, but it seems to be increasing. The prospects of a more aggressive than Fed rate hikes that we kind of talked about, and the possibility of maybe a downturn in oil prices. So that's what everyone from the negative camp is thinking about right now. So we think, the market is always, for the last 100+ years, has always been resilient, Harry. We've always been able to work our way through these potential, storms. But given that fragile state right now with respect to investor sentiment, it wouldn't take much for equities to experience, either some additional consolidation or maybe a potential sell-off. So it's something that investors obviously need to be concerned about. So as we kind of push through into the future, we look at Q2, 3, and 4. We think investors need evidence. The corporate earnings have recovered from the trough that was put in Q1 of this year before they feel more comfortable about moving, back. Both fists loaded up with cash, ready to get back into the equity market. So we think that that's going to materialize. We think that the evidence is going to be there to support higher equity prices. And as a result, investors and your listeners need to really pay attention to what they own, and why they own it. What typically, you've been doing this, 20?
This is our 26th year.
So what happens typically the year of a presidential election in the equity markets?
They usually go up.
That has been the historic norm. So now the question is, are we going to be able, as we get through all the noise, as we kind of chatted before the break, optimism versus pessimism, and are we going to be positioned to be able to get that optimistic outlook and put, the pessimism sort of to the side?
Chuck, exactly 2 minutes left in your program. Give us an update on China.
Well, Harry, look, there's been a lot of discussion coming out of China. The bottom line, the bear case is that China has been aggressively stimulating on the fiscal side, including housing, autos, and that's helped commodity prices.
Did you hear a listener call in? I don't remember if it was 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock hour, but they called in and said that China is having ships arrive with containers, but they're not accepting American payment, and they're trying to.
No,
I had not heard that before the caller said it.
No,
okay.
So if you go back to China for a second, the pessimistic guys and gals, the bears, think that the assistance is going to be ending. That being China trying to aggressively stimulate on the fiscal side. We think China is going to continue to improve. Currency devaluation, which kind of we talked about for weeks and just went away. That the devaluation of the currency is more impactful, and we got to really pay attention to what's going to happen.
Is the China-Russia gang up on America syndrome not really viable at the moment?
We don't think it's viable at this point in time, Harry. I think China has enough to worry about to get their economy back in shape. No doubt about that.
For all of your financial planning needs, turn to Chuck Malamut, the managing director of the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield office, 609-383-2010. Chuck, until we meet again 1 week from today.
Harry, thanks for having me.
As always, just fabulous. That was basically in 43, 44 minutes, your market update, the consumer and the economy, optimism and pessimism for the equity markets, market sentiment, and a trip to China and back. Chuck Malamut, the following program you heard is presented by Chuck, a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. The information, views, and opinions expressed on this broadcast are those of Chuck, do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as of the date of today's broadcast, subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. This presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, member SIPC. When we come back, Justine Santinello, who is our official Early in the Morning lifestyle, fashion, and beauty expert. She's really great at what she does. We're going to be talking about what to do when things go wrong, how to prepare, protect, and maintain your home. It's going to be a great 10 minutes. And then we have Dr. Mark Newkirk, all about your pets, coming up from 9:05 to 9:35, and then wide open forum for the final 30 minutes of today's program. I know that we dropped probably 10 or more phone calls this past 45 minutes. Tomorrow morning, Gary Aldrich on a special day and time because I will be in New York at Hofstra University with Talkers Magazine 2016. Gary in the 7 o'clock hour tomorrow, Gary Aldrich. Paul D'Amato, not to be missed, in the 8 o'clock hour. Frank Neal and All Season Solar in the 9 o'clock hour. So already all of our guests already have the schedule for tomorrow's program. We're always a day ahead of the schedule with the way that we do things on the Hurley in the Morning program. Back with Justine in just a few minutes.